This is the Indy 11 Coaches Show, brought to you by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. Now, let's get an inside look at the players, tactics, and opponents with Indy 11 head coach Sean McAuley. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of the Indy 11 Coaches Show podcast, presented by your local Indiana Ford dealers. Alongside Sean McAuley, as always, I am Ian Gilmore. Thanks for joining us for Season 2, Episode 2. A lot has happened since the last time that we sat down and talked, Sean, macro and micro. Nothing bigger than kind of the pro-rel news and Division I sanctioning, which we will surely get to. We've got an Open Cup draw to talk about, and the first 4 games of our season have been and gone. So why don't we get to the most recent one? It was the North Carolina 2-2 draw. We've talked about you weren't happy, fans weren't happy, players weren't happy with the ending, and giving up a goal late, concede it to draw 2-2. You've said since, though, that you've kind of gone back and watched it, and there wasn't really a doubt in your mind that the players were given 100%, although that mistake was made at the end. So that's something that's kind of weird and kind of interesting to balance, I guess, because you know, if players give 100% but they make a mistake every time they make an action, then we've got a big problem still. That's not the case. So how do you balance the fact that they are given 100% but are still making those mistakes?
I'm going to answer that one, and I'm not going to answer it with a question back to you, thinking that I don't think there's ever a player ever in the history of world football that's never made a mistake.
Right.
So every single player is going to make mistakes. All I want them to do is try the best. And if they try the best and we can't beat North Carolina, then that's where we're at. That is the truth. They are trying their best. Now, what I was disappointed with in the game, and I've spoken to the players about this, they had enough chances to win that game and more than enough of the play. And my message to them for the whole of this season is play on the front foot and be aggressive. And I felt as if we took a backward step for the free kick. We sat too deep and we allowed the opponent to score a goal when realistically, if we were aggressive, we'd have been 2 yards further up. Probably
the line
the line towards the edge of the box. And I looked, the goalkeeper went behind his line at one point. If he's 2 yards further out, obviously the goal looks a bit smaller when you're a little bit close to the ball. And I was just disappointed that we didn't have the courage to see the game through. That courage will come from confidence. We fill the players with confidence, as you know. That's one of the big things. I don't ever want the players to go out with play with fear. But we didn't have the courage to just see it through, and that'll come from results. And if we'd have won the previous game at home, which I thought we did enough to win that game as well, I don't think we're taking that stance. We're just seeing the game through, and that'll come over a longer period of time, over through the season. But in reflection, the players need to know I'm disappointed because I need them to be at a level where they're playing confident, playing aggressive, and playing to win the game, not playing not to lose. Yeah. And that's what I felt we did in that last couple of minutes.
I think it's definitely tough because human nature in the sport really is you go up, you want to protect that lead. There's a million different ways to protect that lead. And we've taken a lead in each game so far this season. So, I think it's safe to say that, many people understand the concept of if you're up, you should win that game. But you know a lot more than a lot of people do in terms of like the anatomy of seeing out a lead. What is step one? Where does that start?
We got to try and score another goal. Because if you have a lead, if you have a 1-goal lead, then they're 1 goal away from a tie, 2 from winning. So you've got to try and score another goal. That's this simple thing. The best way of defending is attacking, and statistics have proved that. I think it's Brentford. They've done a lot of work. Brentford and Brighton have done a lot of work with sort of gambling statistics, and you can look into it. Their owners are from that background, and they realised that when the level of play is near enough equal, which it always is if you're in the same division, then trying to score another goal is the best form of defence.
What's step 2?
I didn't think there was a step 2.
Okay.
If you don't score another goal, what you're trying to say is if you don't get that other goal, then like I said at the weekend, my biggest ask of the players is to play confident and play on the front foot. And as soon as they start playing not to get beat, then you're playing with a different mindset.
Yeah.
And that is something that I don't want the players to do. And I've been fortunate in the US to work with top players in the MLS, like top players. Yeah. And I would look, I don't want to name Darlington Nagbe, Ozzy Alonso, Diego Chara, Diego Valeri, these type of players. And I can take it all the way back to when I played with good players in the UK. And I was an average player, so I understand I had this in me. You play with one foot always on the accelerator and the other foot hovering over the brake. The top players play with one foot on the accelerator and the other foot's just relaxing somewhere else. They don't worry about, what if, what could. They just go bang, and they just play with that intensity and aggression. And that, I think, is really key, that we want our players to do that. It'll take a while to get there. It'll take...
Because that's mindset. Right?
Yeah, completely. And ability of players.
Okay.
Because if you're a good player, then you've got that mindset already. So, for us to try and change that, we need to recruit good players, and that's difficult, to recruit good players with good character, fit into the team culture, and then create that mindset of let's go for it. I'd rather go down swinging than being negative, and there'll come times when we're aggressive and we get it on the chin, and that's something that I have to accept.
Was that the case in Colorado?
Probably, yeah, because we were in complete control of the game in the first half. They scored at the end. We started the second half really, really well again. Had chances and didn't take them. And then we had 5 minutes where they scored 2 goals out of nothing. You've got very little chance of winning games if you can concede that easily. But I would say over a course of the season, we'll have games where we're lucky to win as well, like we did last year. And when I look back at that game against Colorado, realistically, the goals are avoidable. They're fortunate goals.
Yeah, there's luck involved, at least in the second and third.
Yeah,
sure.
That's what I'm saying. The second and third, it's really, really lucky.
Yeah.
So, that's something that they go away and good for them. They've got the win, and, this will, like I said, peaks and troughs. We'll hopefully get a game where we walk away going, I think we're a bit fortunate. But we've not had that yet, and we've performed really well. Our performances have been good. Our points return has not been where I want it to be.
No. But has the response, so Saturday night, I think, very valid. You weren't happy after the game, and said things like, if players are playing in a way that changes our mindset. I think you were talking about how the last 10 minutes they started passing backwards instead of passing forwards. And if they're making choices like that, then they're not going to play. Mm-hmm. Those are, I wouldn't call them harsh words. It's kind of just the reality. Yeah. Has the response to those been good this week?
Players have been great. We come in Monday, and my responsibility is, lift the mood, get everybody back on track. And they didn't take much lifting once they knew what the feedback was, and then start reflecting on that. Once you've done that, and then it's all about preparation for the next game. And the players have been really good. Again, I go back to it. Probably a metaphor of passing backwards instead of forwards is basically saying don't play on the back foot, play on the front foot all times, be aggressive. And they've got that. And I want to see it where we get the reward for the performance. And I don't think we have just yet. I would say the point in Lexington was a reward because they had a lot of the ball and we went with a structure to defend and cause them problems and deny them space in certain areas of the field. And tactically we were really good and got a goal and maybe could have got a second one on the counter-attack, which we'd practiced, and we didn't get the second goal, so we leave ourselves for them to create and get an opportunity. They did. They're a good team. They got it. They took it. We walked away with a point, and I think that was a deserved, valued point. Obviously beat Miami, and then the last 2 games, I don't think we've got the reward for our performance. So we now have to change that around and just keep going and put every effort now into the next few games.
You mentioned Lexington. There was a lot of good things, I think, defensively that night. I wanted to ask you, at least, and this is just my takeaway, so don't put too much stock into it, but it seemed like, watching through a camera lens, a lot of their game plan was to get it wide, and especially on their right-hand side, our left-hand side. And, I would say, personally, I think Aiden Stanley's a really good defender. I think he does good both ways, but I think he's good at defending as well. And by no means do I think he, struggled that night. But when Epps has the ball 20, 25 times, eventually law of averages tells you he's gonna win a couple of those. And he did. He scored and got crosses off. In games like that or moments like that, especially when Aiden's got Malik on his side, who does defensive work, but by no means is a defender. In-game, was there in-game adjustments that you tried to make? What kind of things can you do when it seems like one team is just doing the same thing over and over again and are having a little bit of a success?
So with your theory, we should have been scored on down the other side when Malik's playing on the right.
No. No.
All right, well, because that's what I'm getting.
No
all right,
theories.
okay.
No.
Listen, I spoke to Aidan Stanley about that. He got the runaround, and we got to accept it. You can't improve if you don't admit where it's going wrong. I asked him what he felt. He said, I got it on the chin, and he was really disappointed. So I just told him, I'll try anything the next time.
What'd you say?
You get tight. You get tighter, and you protect yourself.
Before he gets the ball, or right, like
at all times. And you say to Musa at the time, I'm going tight, you have to manage this channel. You say to Aidan Quinn, listen, I need to sort this out, you have to manage the channel. So in his positioning of being good defensive balance, and I've said it to a couple of players, I'll not mention the other ones because we'll see how they go with it, but there are moments in the game where you have to look after yourself and protect yourself, and that was one of them. He needed to go tight, and if you remember, we scored our goal from him making a tackle.
Yeah.
And I referenced the fact that, sometimes it can be a 1v1 battle. It's not like a team game. You've got to look after yourself. And if you're getting the run around like you did, go tight, 5 minutes, put him under pressure, make him play poorly, make his confidence dip, get tight, and we'll sacrifice maybe spaces that he should be in, and we'll just let everybody else know. And he should have managed it that way. There's a real disease in the game of tactics. And they are needed. We work extremely hard on our tactical approach to every single game, managing the opponent. The new one that's now the saying is pitch control is one of the really important things to do. So you control the pitch instead of saying, possession, you control areas of the pitch. And you do that by being first to that area or putting the ball in that area and controlling that area of the field. So you take possession, you take shots on goal, you take expected goals, you take all these things. The biggest thing that I need to get through to our players, and I've done okay with it, but I need to reiterate it, and I'll start doing it again for this next few games, and we need to control this in the season. Gone out the game a little bit has been controlling your opponent. Nobody talks about that anymore. Everybody thinks, well, if we play our game, we should be all right. And nobody talks about you have to manage the opponent first. Whether that's individually or collectively, make them play bad. I don't hear that anymore. I used to hear that a lot when I played. Late 80s, 90s, you'd hear it a lot in, 2000 when, team stock, when, you've got to have that first good start, 20 minutes, and, we don't talk about it anymore, and I think we need to get back to make us different and make us more successful in the USL. We need to be the one team that says, all right, well, let's control the opponent first then. And let's control them, make them play bad, and then we'll put our game on top of them. When you played, you probably had that as well.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I wasn't at that level. No. But, I like asking those questions because, I can see what's happening. I can see that, Epps is having success, but I don't know the answers. Obviously.
Yeah, he's got to get tight. He's got to get tight and make him have a bad game. Whatever else goes on with the 10 versus 10, that happens, and they've got to manage that. 9 versus 9 because Hunter and the other goalkeeper aren't in a direct 1 versus 1 battle. But, sacrifice the little spaces that he's covering to make sure he's covering for everybody else and just tell everybody. Because I was the similar sort of position, similar type of player, I would just say to the two guys that are around me and say, listen, for 5 minutes, I'm going to leave myself up there and I'm going to control that for a little bit. Because if not, the momentum starts going. And going back to your tactical question of, could we have done anything differently? He should have controlled it differently. And I don't want to say that it was a tactical adjustment because We've adjusted in the following weeks, and that didn't happen. So Malik's played on the other side of the field, and that didn't happen at all. And I just think he has to manage it differently.
And like you said, when he had his best moment, he won
the ball,
went and won a tackle,
and
scored a goal on the other end.
Yeah. So just do that again.
Yeah, just do that every time.
Why not,
right?
That, yeah.
And we've talked about Bruno too, but seeing him, especially going forward, has been really cool to start the season as well.
And I will say, like I said, Aiden on that game admitted that he got the runaround, but we also have to reflect that we got the point because of his play in the build-up to the goal. Because without that moment, we don't get to the position in the field that we got into.
Yeah, and I mean, all the other good defensive things that he did do.
Yeah.
It's not like Epps beat him every single time.
I agree.
No means.
I agree.
And I could never say a bad word about Standers, and I don't mean to single him out in there, but that's just one thing I saw that I want to ask you about. You started the season against Miami, did well, 3-1 win away from home, and they are the Open Cup opponent for the round of, it was 64? I think so, or 48, or whatever it is. The next round is round of 32. Yeah. The format's a little hard to keep up with, and they change it year to year, but it's good that there's more MLS teams in it. So with Open Cup, I think back to last year a decent amount, and I think most people would agree that in their time supporting this club and being a part of this club, those were some of the best moments and greatest memories. And just having that hope, I think back to standing on the field in Kansas City in warm-ups and turning to Mark and being like, I think we can do this. And just like those little moments and those little feelings. And then, I think about Newcastle lifting a cup for the first time in my life and the feelings with that. And when that happens here, the feelings will be incredible. Yeah. You've got 2 chances to do it this year in cup competitions. It starts in the Florida group in the Open Cup. We've talked a ton about how important cup competitions are. How difficult do you feel it will be to match, replicate, or go past the success of last year?
I think going back to what you said originally is the success was the feelings. We got to the semi-final great, and we had a chance. When you get to that, you have a chance to go in the final. And when you get the final, you have a chance to win. That's the thing. You don't get anywhere unless you look after the earlier rounds. But in answering to your question, can we replicate it? We can. We can give the supporters a good feeling. We have to win the first game. Then the MLS teams start coming in. Then the supporters will get a good feeling if we draw an MLS team. And then for us, that is then go and put ourselves against, the best in the country. Let's have a go for it. And if we fall short, we fall short. But we've again created a feeling for the supporters to go, we're matching the elite in the country. And that's what we need to do. But you don't get anywhere unless you win your first game, and I think then the MLS teams come into the next round. If I look at last year, our toughest game, I think, in the lead up to the semi-final was Chicago away from home against their second team. They gave us the absolute runaround in the second half. First half, we were really comfortable. Second half, they came out, nothing to lose, and they gave us the runaround. And we won 1-0, move on to the next round, and that's forgot about. It wasn't forgot about. We've got to make reference to it, because if you don't win the earlier ones, you've got no chance of getting the good feeling. So all we want to do is give the supporters and the club, let's get on the map again with the MLS teams, and let's give the supporters a good feeling.
There's something about cups where that Chicago game was a great example of just win. It doesn't matter how you get to the next round if you get to the next round. It's a little bit of a weird one because we're going to be 5 games into the season, and we're going to play Miami for the second time in 6 weeks. Anything weird with that, with preparation, seeing that they already know a certain amount about us and we already know a certain amount about them?
I wouldn't have thought so. I think it happened similar to last year. We played Detroit, I think, in one of the early rounds after Chicago, and we played them in the league early. What I will say is, I said when we played Miami in the second game, they'll be better as they go on. They'll be better than what they were in the first game. And when we face them again in the Open Cup, they'll be better than what they were because they're building something there with a different group, different coaching. Everything's new. Once they start getting familiarity with each other, they'll be a better group and a better team. What we have to do is sort of manage that challenge that's in front of us, and we have to, like you said, it's win at all costs because it's one and done.
That starts kind of the three game weeks of this season. Is it fair to say that you will see more people beyond just the people we see in the 18 this weekend throughout the 3-game week?
We have to get rid of the game on Saturday first before we focus on Wednesday. I have something in my head that I think fits the need of what we do in order to win both games. But let's take care of Saturday, and then we'll look at Wednesday's game. We've got a couple of people coming back from injury that might need some minutes, but we won't put the result at risk by changing everything. The good thing from our point of view, the squad is very similar in terms of ins and outs. So whoever comes in, is not really that much of a drop in standard. And I would say, and this is no disrespect, but we had a different level of player last year across the board. It was like, everybody in the squad were at different levels of the career. I think this group we've got, everybody's around the same, and they're all encouraging each other and pushing each other every day in training. So we should have a good enough group that plays all 3 games to compete in all 3 games. Whether we get the results or not, that's sometimes not in our hands of because luck can go against you. But in terms of performance, we'll have a team that takes the field all 3 games that is going out to win.
On to the kind of not necessarily Indy 11 topics. The first one being Pro Rel, the news that in 2028 the USL will have, it sounds like 3 leagues that have promotion and relegation between them. Kind of changes the landscape in American sports, being the first one to do it. Based on what you've seen and as someone who's coached and played in it before, kind of what are your thoughts on it?
Being relegated, being promoted, and it's going to be tough for the US to adopt. Great, everybody's talking how great it is. It'll be tough to adopt.
Based on what? Like, are you talking more
getting
the fans to buy in?
No, I think the fans will love it. The fans will love it. Just what it entails. There are a lot of things that we need to think about because we're in the US landscape. Will there be a salary cap?
I wouldn't put one in.
Okay. So if people lose jobs when you go down. So that means, all the staff because this is what happens in England. I'm only telling you what happens in England. You get relegated, people lose their jobs. And that's a nature of the beast. And I'm not talking about the head coach. I'm talking about the tea lady. I'm talking about the little lady who does the kit and back home, and the kit man who's been there for 20 years of cleaning boots. He loses his job.
Communication departments probably get smaller.
Everything gets smaller because you don't have enough. You don't have the same. How can I put it? The workload, completely different.
How much of that do you think is based on the revenue, especially the TV revenue that comes in through the
England,
Premier League?
And then in England, yeah, huge.
So if that isn't the case here, how much similar will it be?
Well, if it's not the case of promotion relegation for TV and growing the game, why are we doing it?
Well, I think hopefully, eventually you get to that point or to something similar. Okay. I don't think the U.S. soccer scene will ever be as big as England.
But I'm saying eventually you want to get to the point of where you can sell TV rights.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's basically what it's all.
So you want to get there, yeah.
Yeah, so you can't say it's not about that because that's where it eventually is. Then I would just, be mindful of the fact that it's a lot of money that's needed, because teams will spend to stay up, teams will spend to go up, and there needs to be some safeguarding around clubs that don't spend. I would hate to see promotion relegation happen and clubs die. That's my big thing.
Do you think that's a real fear, that could happen?
I think it could happen in any league in any world.
We've seen it here.
So that's what I would hate to think. As long as it's safeguarding, I think maybe a salary cap would safeguard that. We talk about minimum standards for the top division, and that's great. What if somebody gets promoted without the minimum standards? What are we doing then? What do you think? What would happen then?
Yeah, I don't know if that's like they just can't, or that's a U.S.
Well,
soccer
Luton
steps
got
in.
promoted to the Premier League, didn't they?
Yeah, and they had
And
to
their standard,
refurbish their stadium.
full refurbishment. Yeah. With a lot of money. I mean, they get a lot of money back out. It's a lot of money. They might get relegated again this year. And before you know it, these teams are dropping down, and it's tough to get back up. I'm all for it. I think it'd be great for player development as well. Having more responsibility to always something on the game. So that's where you'll get revenue. Is you hope that there is no mid-table, meaningless game in August. Every game matters, and that's what we're going for. And hopefully that helps with player development, helps with club development, helps with everything else. But promotion relegation just won't suddenly automatically, I don't think, improve everybody's club's fortunes.
Yeah.
You have to improve them yourself and embrace the promotion relegation and what it means.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to your club, Newcastle. And I only say this before they got taken over, because I was the head coach at the time of Sheffield Wednesday on Boxing Day. We played Newcastle. We were bottom of the league, they were top of the league. They had a team full of Premier League players who had come down, Alan Smith, Amiobe, Colaccini, the Argentinian. They had an unbelievable squad. And the game ended 2-2 and we had our squad. They would struggle in the Premier League, get relegated, and there were more supporters watching them win, get promoted. All they missed was the TV revenue. But for them, they didn't mind going down to the Championship once they'd done it, because they preferred seeing their team winning in the Championship than losing every week in the Premier League. And that is, if we can adopt that mentality, that would be great. Because then clubs realise the fact that there is a value in, if you have a season where you don't succeed and you get relegated, the following season can be unbelievably special because you might be getting a promotion. And if you can get to that level of understanding and intensity and growth in your club, then it'd be a great thing.
Hopefully they can get there.
I think that's across the league, across the country. But if you can get to that level, I mean, you would look at it and you would say that, Sheffield United got a chance of getting promoted back into Premier League, and they'll go in there and enjoy the Premier League. But if they're getting beat every week, a lot of them will say, I can't wait to go back down so we can, have another run at it, earn some more money and get up again. And, that's a bit the supporters' view. And it was like the Newcastle supporters' view. At that time, they didn't have the investment to go and compete in the Premier League. But they had obviously blew everybody in the division below the Championship out the water. Yeah. And they enjoyed winning games of football, and that's what it's all about. And if you can get the landscape in the US to understand that and embrace it, then everybody gains. Because the team that gets relegated from what we're currently in now into the division below becomes then the leader of that group below trying to get back in.
Yeah, well, especially when butts and seats is so important in this league and in the USL as a whole, that you do hope that, like you said, that the support stays there. I mean, I know we've got no problem here, but in general across the country. And I think that a decent amount of it, like you said about the consequences for getting relegated, I think that's much more known over there across the pond. Not really talked about out loud too much. But I think that is what entices some people about it over here is the stakes of all of it. I don't think those are totally understood by everybody, but the fact that there is higher stakes on pretty much every single game. Yeah. Bottom and top of the table.
Yeah. And like I said, it'll if we can embrace it, and the USL manages to get it and gets it competing, and everybody stays and everybody understands the bigger long-term picture of it, then it'd be great. But you've got to have commitment from everybody on all sides, that we don't, look at it short term and say, well, we've got relegated, we're not bothering next year.
Yeah, I think that's the thing to stay away from. And we've got,
because there's going to be 3 divisions. So what happens to the League One team now? Currently, one team who gets relegated.
Yeah, I don't know, or if there is relegation from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll hopefully grow and take care of it. I see it as an unbelievably positive thing because it's something different, something new in the US, which is great to be part of. But making sure that everybody is aware of what it takes. It's going to be tough. I think the two leagues can probably run hand in hand together, is what they've said. And, everybody's got their own specific market. The MLS have got their market for what they want to do. The USL have obviously got their market. And, from a US soccer's point of view, in terms of creating footballers for the national team and all that, then obviously it's a good thing to have high-level football playing all over the country, because these small to middle markets that, you want elite football in everywhere in the country, and that's what it will provide. In terms of competing with MLS, then it's going to be tough because Messi's in the MLS now. They're talking about Kevin De Bruyne coming to MLS. Their salary cap that they've got is in the millions. So you've got to be mindful of where they're at, and I don't think they'll slow down either. I think they'll keep going.
Also, just to say, me and Sean do not speak on behalf of anybody. No. Just got some good ideas over here. One more thing I wanted to ask you before we're finished today. With Birmingham Legion's head coach, parting ways with them, not incredibly surprising based on missing playoffs and kind of the start of season form they've had. But then you also think, they're only 3 points out of the playoffs. They've played Loudoun, Louisville, at Detroit, at Pittsburgh to start the season. I don't think a lot of people think about this, but I've thought about this sometimes, and just kind of the human element to it. When you're coaching at this level, your livelihood's on the line, day to day, game to game. You've been at this for decades now. Is that something that you think about? And if so, how big of a burden does that kind of feel on you? Not just as a coach, but more as a professional, a human.
I think first off, I've got to say Tommy's done a really good job at Birmingham. Been there since 2018?
Yeah.
Made the playoffs every year, and they've not made it once.
Winning record by a decent amount.
I would say that.
That's a tough game.
That's pretty tough.
Yeah.
I know that the club wants to take another leap forward because they're trying to build a stadium. I know they've built a really good training ground, so maybe they've got a decision to make that they've both made it together and they've gone in different directions. But in terms of record, I think he's done a fantastic job. And then second part of your question, I get asked this quite a lot of people who have come into the game sort of thing, or want to get into the game. Or I first got into football when I left school in June 1988. I've been unemployed for 1 week, and it was the week between when I left Orlando, so that would have been December 2000, the last week of December 2019, and on the 1st of January 2028, I went to Minnesota United. And I knew that was going on anyway, but that was 1 week. So I've been really, really fortunate. And I understand that could go at any time. There is a saying that somebody said to me, a really experienced coach, really experienced manager, leader. He said, when you go to a club, plan for 10 years and don't be surprised if it ends in 10 minutes. And in terms of fear and, stress, I have zero of that because, and this is just, my mindset, I have a UEFA Pro license, I have a US Pro license, I have a sports science degree, I have a teaching qualification, I've been in the game 35 years. I might get another job. And that's what you've got to do. I do not want to get fired. I don't want to leave here. But there'll come a time when, you like Tommy, different direction, whatever it is. And I would just hope then that my experience and my qualifications, so the theory and the practical, I have quite a lot of. And I just hope that I would get another opportunity somewhere else.
I'd hire you.
Yeah, well, to be your assistant, he's behind the camera now. He has done absolutely nothing, by the way, since we've been here, other than listen to us. So
gotta make sure it doesn't stop recording.
I am deaf in one ear, though. So being deaf in one ear, I don't think, to be fair, if it's
audio monitoring
that'd be me.
is not in your future then.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but I just because I mean like if we weren't hitting goals on video views and there's like a 6-month review or something, I'd be like, I can't believe you don't have any stress, by the way, because I get stressed over small things even. But I think that's a human element that people don't really I don't know.
Fergie said years and years ago, manage stress and manage expectations and you'll be all right. So I've got stress, but you just got to manage it. Okay. And the way you manage it is by understanding what the next step of our performance has to be. What I will like. We're pretty organised in what we do. So we already know now what we're planning for Saturday. We've done that today in training. We know, got great staff here. So I know what the organisation for tomorrow's travel, because Shelby will have all that sorted. When we get to the hotel, the meals, everything is done. So to manage stress, you just need to be organised and know what you need to do next. And I think we're pretty clear on what we need to do next. And then you've got to manage expectations. And the expectations are quite high that I set on myself. And I have to manage expectations of other people around us, players, staff members, on, where I think we need to be and where I think we should be taking the team to. Because, and again, this comes probably from experience, every single one of our stakeholders in this football club, supporters, owners, staff, players, every single player, every single stakeholder wants to win. And I want to win. If we don't win, I've got to make sure that every stakeholder doesn't get too disappointed. Because not every team in the world can win every single game. And my experience tells you that when one game's done, you have to get onto the next one pretty quickly. And hopefully win that one. And if we don't, then you probably have somebody else sitting in this chair.
Hopefully not. Cool. Anything else that you want to add? That was the last question I had for you, so I don't know if there's much left to cover.
No, I think it's a big month for us. With the, like you said, we play the first game of the Open Cup, play the first game of the Jägermeister Cup, and I've said all along, we need to win a trophy. To win the Open Cup now with all the MLS teams coming back in is going to be tough. Last year was a great run, and my expectations for that is to give people experiences and like I said, make people, memories and make people happy again and put us on the map. When it comes down to the Jägermeister Cup, we need to be looking to get as far as we can in that. First time it's been played through the season, so it's an opportunity for us to go and we need to win silverware. And then we just need to get in the playoffs. You can talk about home team, away team and all that sort of stuff and top four. We need to get in the playoffs. And I've said to everybody before, if we make it this year, we have a chance to win a trophy. And if we make it this year, it'll be 3 years in a row, and the club's never done that before in its history. So it means we're moving in the right direction. So our next level of development, tough month for us this month because them two tournaments that we want to go far in, and the league games, obviously we need to we're in the top 8 now, but we need to maintain that. So yeah, big month for us.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, that is episode 2 of season 2 of the Indy 11 Coaches Show podcast presented by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. A shout out as always to shop.indy11.com. We'll have some really exciting stuff coming next week. So make sure you are up on the shop website to find your latest merch. We will see you next time.
This is the Indy 11 Coaches Show, brought to you by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. Be sure to like and follow this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening. To watch the video version of this podcast, subscribe to the Indy 11 YouTube channel.